Hello and welcome. We come to you live from Doha, where the latest effort to find peace in Sudan is centred. But can talks make any difference when major parties in the conflict are absent? As it is, the meeting in Doha between Sudanese government representatives and a newly formed coalition of rebels has been postponed because of two of the top mediators not managing to arrive in Qatar in time. In 2003, a civil war erupted in Sudan's Darfur region, killing around 300,000 people and forcing 2.7 million from their homes. Past peace initiatives have failed, from the 2006 Darfur agreement to this year's ceasefire with Darfur's most powerful rebel group, the Justice and Equality Movement, GEM. And GEM's Sudanese Liberation Army are refusing to take part in the Doha talks, demanding an assurance of preconditions, including security and the return of internally displaced people. Well, the government says it wants a peace deal in place before southern Sudan's referendum on self-determination in January next year. So today we ask, how can Sudan's latest strategy for Darfur achieve peace in the region? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. You can send an SMS or an email, and we also welcome your phone calls on the show. Well, I'm joined by two men who are part of the current negotiations taking place. Dr. al-tijani, al-sissi, whose newly formed group, the LJM, is the only rebel group involved in these Doha peace talks, and Dr. Adam Rahma, who's leading the Sudanese government's delegation as a spokesperson for the Darfur talks. He's been part of the negotiating team since 2004. Gentlemen, I'm glad to have you both here.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Rahma, let me start with you, sir, and ask you how much of a setback this delay is, the delay in the peace talks starting, and any idea of when they might start?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I would like to start by saying that the delay which has taken place is mainly due to reasons which you have really understood quite well. Right now, the chief mediator is not around, and Mr. Al-Mahmoud, who is the state minister for foreign affairs, is not around. And as far as I know, also, our brothers in the movement are not yet all around. So it is quite understandable that the talks might be delayed for 3-4 days. That's not a big deal. We are going to actually resume sometime.
Nothing underlying. It's simply the delay of the mediators coming from the UN General Assembly.
I assume that's mainly the reason, because as far as the government is concerned, it's here and it's ready to resume the negotiations. So we don't see any other reason for this delay except what I've said.
Now, of course, sir, what you want to achieve in these talks is a lasting peace, but how can that be achieved when you don't have some of the major forces involved in this conflict present at the talks?
Well, if you are talking about SLA, Abdul Wahid faction, and GEM, Justice and Equality Movement, both of them are putting preconditions for joining this peace process. Abdul Wahid is putting preconditions which are actually the issues which are going to be negotiated in the table. He's talking about return of the IDPs, security and compensation and so on. And these are the issues which are really actually being discussed and being negotiated.
Now, he's saying they should happen before the talks.
I assume so.
Okay.
He's saying that that's what he's saying. Unless this is achieved, he's not going to join the talks. So if this is achieved, why is he going to join the talks? Right. GEM voluntarily, decided not to continue these negotiations, and it was saying that should be the sole movement that should negotiate the government, and it was the case like that when they signed the goodwill agreement in February actually, of 2009. But then it started talking about the mediation being not neutral, it is being biased and so on, and you all know that.
Yeah.
So I think it is they who are not joining for their own reasons.
Right. Sir, I'll get onto those in just a second. I want to get some of those points he's raised in a moment to you. But let me bring in Dr. al-tijani, al-sissi. Sir, good to you could join us too.
Thank you.
You formed a coalition of about 10 rebel groups back in February, and I wonder how strong that coalition is. Do all the members of that, 10 different rebel groups, do they all see eye to eye on all the points?
I can assure that our group is as strong as it has been, and we are earning a lot of support every now and then. And since January, I think since February, we are now 18 factions, and every now and then we are getting some further colleagues who are joining us.
Let me put an email to you, sir, that came in from a regular viewer by the name of Barnabas Mavuti, who says, These talks are a waste of time as usual. Without a major shareholder, nothing tangible can come as a result. Now, doesn't he have a point that, you know, how can you represent all the warring factions if there's...
I cannot disagree anymore with him. I mean, but he must know that the major stakeholders in the conflict are present in this forum. Their movements are there, and as you know, we have been calling for the participation of the civil society as well as the IDPs, and this is precisely what has happened when we signed the framework agreement. We agreed with the government of Sudan that these people should should be part of and parcel of the negotiations, and we managed to bring the civil society as well as the leaders of the IDPs over here, and we are very open to the fact that the conflict in Darfur could not be settled by one group. There are a lot of stakeholders. There are armed groups, there are civil society, there are IDPs, and there are other sections of our population who are also stakeholders. Through
the show, I'll talk about some of the issues that have come up, but Dr. Rahman, I want to get back to the point you were making about what you see as the contradiction between GEM's position and the potential for the talks. And I'd like you to answer comments of the GEM spokesman in London, Hussein Adam, who made these comments about the talks in Doha being a PR stunt. This is what he had to say, if you're listening to this.
I don't think that the government of Sudan is committed to any kind of peaceful settlement, and the whole thing is in Doha is just a PR kind of thing, because our people, they don't have any trust right now in Doha. They don't have trust in anyone who is sitting there right now in Doha at all. So when the government is ready for peaceful resolution of the conflict, when they will be taken the political decision to resolve this conflict through political means, GEM will be there. But till now, we don't see that the government is going to commit itself to any kind of political process. And we're not going to be there just for a PR thing, to negotiate just for the sake of negotiation.
If he wants to be assured that the government is committed to peace process, I tell him right now that the government is committed to the peace process. And we look forward for them to join the process. The government is keen and very serious about these talks and about talks in general. These talks started in 2004, almost 7 years ago. Since then, the government did not stop from seeking ways and means to come to a positive and conclusive ending to this war. GEM knows very well. It was there in Abuja since 2004 through 2006. Voluntarily decided not to sign. Now we are opening hands and arms for them to come and join. The government is very, very serious in this whole process. And actually, we are negotiating with our brothers in Liberation and Justice Movement. And they know very well that we are very, very serious. We are open to listen to them. We are open to the civil society, as mentioned. We are open to all the political parties. We want to have all the people of Sudan actually on board on this process. We are open to listen to all these.
What I'll do then, thank you, sir. I'm going to ask you a little more about that in a moment. Let me get Dr. al-Sissi's view on this. The GEM spokesman there, Hussein Adam, also had this to say on why his group boycotted the talks in Doha. Listen to this.
But actually, for 2 years, we failed actually to reform the process. We proposed, so many proposals. We gave them strategies. We gave them, so many proposals to the mediation. But the mediation failed actually to be impartial and to be neutral and to act according to international standards.
What effort have you made as a group, as your party, to try to, or your gathering, your coalition, to try to get GEM on board and persuade them that they might have some chance?
Well, I think Ahmed Hussein, the spokesman of GEM, has every right to express his views. But I would like to start with the previous question that you posed to Mr. Rahma, which is more or less related to the issue. I think, Riz, there are 3 impediments. There have always been 3 impediments to the peace process in Darfur. Fragmentation of the rebel groups, multiple regional and international initiatives, and the third one is lack of willingness, political will from the part of the government to negotiate and to achieve a just and comprehensive peace in Darfur. As far as the first issue is concerned, LGM as a group is now a very consolidated group of 18 rebel factions. We are negotiating with the government. As far as the multiplicity of the regional and international initiatives is concerned, I think the regional community as well as the international community have agreed that Doha is the only venue for negotiating and achieving peace for Darfur. As far as the third issue is concerned, the issue of the commitment of the Sudanese government, the only way we can test this commitment, is to negotiate. And that's precisely what LJM is doing. What we are doing now is to negotiate in Doha and to test the willingness of the Sudanese government to achieve just and comprehensive peace in Darfur. If that would be attained, we will go for it. Otherwise, well, we will have some further views on that.
Let's get a viewer in here. Drale is on the line from the Netherlands, gentlemen. I ask you to take his question. Drale, go ahead, please.
Yes. My question concerning Darfur, they are fighting along the gamut of Khartoum against the South Sudan. Long time they've been fighting, more than 18 years they are fighting for South Sudan. How comes that they again today they say they are fighting gamut of Khartoum while they've been fighting for South Sudan? Because South Sudan objective is clear, they wanted their own independence. What about now Darfur? They are fighting for what? I want to take any...
So yeah, thank you, Mr. Drale. Let me get Dr. al-Sissi to answer that.
Darfur has not been fighting South Sudan. It was the Sudanese army, which is composed of the various citizens of the country, that has been instructed or ordered to fight in the south. And those include Darfurians, it includes people from northern Sudan, from eastern Sudan, as well as people from the South Sudan. There were a lot of southerners within the ranks of the Sudanese army who were fighting the war in the south.
Dr. Ahmed, why did the 2006 peace talks fail, in your opinion?
Well, partly because not all the factions which were there have agreed to sign. So actually, out of 3 groups, only 1 group signed. And secondly, even the group which has signed splintered into different factions, and until now, part of them is with Mr. al-tijani. These are just part. The most important part, actually, which we are trying to avoid in these negotiations, which are trying to avoid, actually, is that people of Darfur and people of Sudan were not aware of that agreement. Yes, there was part of the agreement which was called Darfur Dialogue and Consultation. It was the main activity of that, and part of the agreement is to disseminate the GPA. Very unfortunately, people of Darfur were not aware of it. People in Sudan were not even the officials were not aware of it.
What's different this time? What's different this time, sir?
This time we are trying to have on board all the Sudanese and Darfurians in particular in this agreement, through the civil society, through their native leadership, through their political leaders, through the institutions which you have there. And even the elected members of the parliament and state legislatives are all on board. This makes the peace agreement which we are working for it is owned by the people in there, and all of them on board. Therefore, we don't have to worry about not understanding the peace agreement, not understanding the benefits.
I'll get you in just a second, sir. We've got a caller from the UK. Let's get Ishaq in before we take a break. Ishaq, go ahead. What would you like to ask?
Well, I would like to say that the Sudan government is not committed to peace, because committing to peace means giving away powers to JLM or GEM, and giving away powers, it means complying with the international community, including the International Criminal Court. So therefore, Sudan regime will never give away powers and will never sign a genuine peace agreement. So they are there just for the talk, for the sake of
Ishaq, I will get that question to Dr. Ahmad, and we'll talk about other issues. We're going to take a short break here, though. When we return, what are the plans for the millions of Darfuris internally displaced? More of that discussion when we return. Welcome back. As the conflict in Sudan struggles to find a long-term resolution, millions of Darfuris remain displaced without the security to return home. What sort of future do they face, and how is the latest peace initiative addressing their needs? Discussing these issues with me are Dr. al-Tijani al-Sissi, whose newly formed group, the LJM, is the only rebel group involved in the Doha peace negotiations, and Dr. Hussein Adam, who's leading the Sudanese government's delegation as spokesperson for the Darfur talks. Let's get back to a question, Dr. Ahmed. The issue that Ishaq from the UK asked was about the Sudanese power. He says a government will never give up power, he says.
Well, there is one committee is specifically for power sharing. Unless you come and discuss and negotiate, how would you know that if the government is going to give or not? How can you make that conclusion? The government is ready to discuss power sharing and set criteria for that purpose. The major criteria which is agreed upon is that the percentage of the population of every region in Darfur is about 20%. Let us share the power in Sudan at the central level based on that percentage. And that's not something that's difficult. We agreed upon that, in fact. And if the guy is talking about vice presidency or something like that, which is demanded by our brothers in LGM, it is something negotiable. So actually, it is not just easy to throw in that kind of conclusion by saying that the government is not ready. The government is ready to negotiate. The government is ready to come to a just conclusion, just peace agreement, whether that in power sharing or wealth sharing or any other aspect of that negotiation, or any other committee. So,
well, Dr. al-Sissi, I know you had a comment, or you have a view on why the 2006 talks failed, but I also want to put to you, as you answer that, an email we had from a viewer by the name of Fatima Farashi in the USA, who wrote in saying, if the people affected were able to contribute to talks, they would be more effective. Now, what in terms of getting the people's voice in, Dr. Rahma was saying that there's more inclusive or more understanding about what's going on. Give me your perspective on that and why you think it's failed in the past.
Well, I think this is related to the question that was raised by Ishaq Maki from London. The issue of power. Power is a very important issue for Darfur, because, I mean, well, we have a daunting task in front of us. There are more than 3.5 million refugees and IDPs, and the problem is so complicated that you need an administration that is empowered to be able to implement any resulting peace agreement. One of the reasons why Abuja the Abuja agreement was not able to resolve the conflict in Darfur is simply because the resulting authority that came out of Abuja did not have an oversight over the 3 states of Darfur. So it remained in Khartoum, and the DPA itself remained in the shelves in Khartoum. Mini Minawi, who was the senior assistant to the president, did not have authority over the states of Darfur. So how could he implement that peace agreement? As far as Doha is concerned, there is a need for a resulting authority. There is a need for a regional authority that is empowered, that has the authority to implement any resulting peace agreement on the ground. If that does not happen, then we will repeat the Abuja experience.
Now, Dr. Rahma, I wanted to get you to also respond to this from Hussein Adam, who the GEM spokesman in London, because we couldn't get him on, so we got him to comment on this issue of the displaced people here, on the internally displaced persons. This is what he had to say, so listen to this.
The regime is right now, as we speak, is imposing military and security solution, in Darfur. And they are dismantling the ITP camps and forcing the ITPs actually to leave from their camps against the international standards and against international law.
Okay, so he's saying it's against international law that the government is basically imposing military and security solutions there and dismantling the IDP camps, forcing them to actually leave. There's a view that the government wants not for them to return, but to displace them permanently, to change the profile of that region. So your response, sir?
That's definitely not true. The government is looking for creation of conducive environment for the IDPs and the refugees to go back to their original places. And that's actually what they want, actually. And the government wants to have social benefits, social development to happen in these villages and their original places in terms of water wells, schools, health centers, and so on, besides peace and security in Darfur.
Well, I was going to say, first they need security, and the UN mission in Darfur says it has no mandate to protect the people. How can you guarantee them security if they return?
Well, I would say that very fortunately now, the situations are becoming normalized, and the government took the initiative, actually, to provide these villages with these needs, social needs, and actually started development, actually, in these areas. Therefore, if we wait for the rebels to come and, to an agreement, it's now 7 years. We may wait for 7 more years before we come to a conclusion. Therefore, the government shouldered its responsibilities and now is working very hard and vigorously to provide these social needs so that the IDPs and refugees go back to their original places. If yes,
Dr. Ahmed, just a quick question: how important is it to have this resolution, this agreement in place before the referendum on the southern region there in early January?
Well, it all depends on the goodwill of our brothers in LGM. The government is very sincere about these talks. The government is, and all the issues actually have been exhausted. And as far as the committees, we have 5 committees. Except for the Security Committee, all the other committees have gone very far. In the wealth sharing, we have covered over 80%. In power sharing, about 60%, or even a little less. And we are ready to negotiate in the other committees. So therefore, we are pretty confident that we can reach an agreement if our brothers in the movement actually would not put any obstacles in that.
Well, that's what I want to go. About 30 seconds, Dr. al-Sissi. How confident are you can get the SLA and the and GEM to come around?
Well, I think the onus is not on us. It's on the government, to be honest. We have always had the goodwill. I think whether we'll be able to conclude a peace agreement or not, it depends on the government willingness to provide concessions in a lot of areas.
I have to stop you. I'm so sorry because I have to stop you because we're out of time. Gentlemen, I thank you both and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being with us too. Remember, you can follow our program on Twitter. We'll keep you notified on upcoming shows, and you can send us questions and comments to pose to our guests. On the next show, cleanup in the Gulf of Mexico. Oil dispersants were meant to aid the cleaning effort following the massive spill, but these chemicals are making the environment more toxic, according to some. What are the risks? Join us for that. From me and the teams in Doha and DC, see you next time.